again, I would encourage people to start thinking about everything you see in the national news. Really consider, is this just another psychological operation? Is this just another thing that's here to play with my mind and make me choose one side, left, right, et cetera, et cetera? Because like I said, we could sit here and go through everything about the Epstein files. I'm telling you, every single thing from everything about Epstein that's been in the news has been by the numbers and highly ritualistic, just like the Russell Wilson headline from last week, February 2nd.
Hey, welcome back to the show. And joining us today is returning guest Zach Hubbard of GematriaEffectNews. He's also the author of Letters and Numbers, as well as Number Games. And Zach, it's good to see you again. How you been?
Thanks for having me back. All is well over here.
Well, there's certainly no shortage of topics to cover today. Obviously, X and all over social media, people are talking about the Epstein files, and would love to hear your take on that, your latest thoughts, and perhaps other things going on around the world and even here domestically.
Yeah, last time we were on here, we talked about the nonstop ritualism with the Epstein files, and a little more than a week ago, just before the Super Bowl kicked off, we got Russell Wilson, the former quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, who won them their first Super Bowl. He was named in the Epstein files, and it was a big headline on February 2nd. And for people who forgot, the Seahawks won the Super Bowl February 2nd, 12 years earlier. Of course, they win their next Super Bowl 12 years later. They called the Seattle fans the 12s. And just so you know, that was the 12th win by the Seahawks over the Patriots all time. Just now in Super Bowl 60, it was the 12th Super Bowl appearance for the Patriots. And if you look it up, the score of the Super Bowl, 29-13, 12th time in NFL history that score ever happened. Also, just about the Super Bowl real quick, and coming back to the Russell Wilson thing, if you look, there were 666 yards of total offense. Pretty familiar number there, 666. Of course, Seattle's the land of the Beastquake. For the record, Seattle's on the 47th parallel. Again, if you haven't seen the last two interviews, I'd highly suggest everybody goes back to the first interview I did, where I gave a tutorial on numbers and numerology and gematria. Gematria is the practice of going numbers into words, but Seattle's on the 47th parallel. Big number with sports up in Seattle, and just ritualism, period. But in gematria, beast equates to 47. Again, the Beastquake was in Seattle, and Marshawn Lynch was the star of that play, who's from the Bay Area, who just had some festivities before the Super Bowl. Again, in this Super Bowl, you have Seattle, the Beastquake team, win and defeat the Patriots in San Francisco, where the Church of Satan was founded, again, with 666 total yards of offense. These things are not an accident, and where that ties in is, again, you go back to February 2nd, Russell Wilson named in the Epstein files, and all the media put parentheses around the same quote from Russell Wilson about being named in the files. His response was, "Not today, Satan." And really interesting because in gematria, the phrase "not today, Satan," if you take the alphabetic order in numerology, just as a refresher, N would be the 14th letter of the alphabetic order. The numerology of 14 is 1 + 4 is 5. So if you do this to each letter in "not today, Satan," it equates to 43, like Seattle Seahawks, who won the Super Bowl with Russell Wilson with 43 points, defeating the Broncos 43-8. And again, these things are not an accident. If you don't apply numerology, "not today, Satan" equates to 169, like Seattle Seahawks, also like Sam Darnold. And you might have noticed in the Super Bowl, the Seahawks were up 9 at the half and won the game by 16. And just days before the Super Bowl, Drake May came out and said his favorite Bible verse was Proverbs 16:9. We can talk more about the Super Bowl, but I just really wanted to emphasize how everything with the Epstein files, the releases, it's highly ritualistic. You might recall a little more than a month ago, the first big drop after the vote in Congress to move forward with the Epstein files. The opening day story was an image of Michael Jackson with Epstein, and then Bill Clinton swimming in a pool. and just the whole Clinton Trump saga and the ongoing, 30 years of Michael Jackson and how he might have been, a diddler, if you will. None of this stuff is advancing the conversation, and it's just working on what's already out there that so much the American public's already stuck on. Again, I would maintain that the Epstein files, while it's probably alluding to things that are true, I really do think this is a psychological operation, and it's never really going to disclose anything that meaningful, and it's just going to keep people stuck in the same political trap of left and right. And again, I would encourage people to start thinking about everything you see in the national news. Really consider, is this just another psychological operation? Is this just another thing that's here to play with my mind and make me choose one side, left, right, et cetera, because like I said, we could sit here and go through everything about the Epstein files. I'm telling you, every single thing from everything about Epstein that's been in the news has been by the numbers and highly ritualistic, just like the Russell Wilson headline from last week, February 2nd.
Okay, so can you break that down? The utility that this serves in this psychological operation with the cabal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just that this understanding numerology and gematria, again, I was taught that things like this were old world and nonsense, just like a lot of us. And I'm starting to think that we were taught that so that we would not see what was hidden right in front of our face on a daily basis. Because I'm telling you, these games are played every single day with us. But it's just that it's the ability to see a news story coming out and then take this knowledge and decipher it in seconds. Case in point, last night, did you hear that Canada suffered one of its worst mass shootings in history?
I saw that. I think it was your post that I saw it.
Okay, so again, if you guys don't know, just last night, February 10th, Canada suffers a horrible mass shooting. And I can't remember if I talk about it a lot on my own channel, but I can't remember if I brought up the mass shooting of Canada, the mass shooting in Canada, April 19th, 2020. I can't remember if we brought that up the first time I was on here, but it got gun rights taken away in the UK. If you guys recall, April 19th, 2020, a man reportedly stole a Mountie uniform and a Mountie car and drove up and down Route 102, killing a lot of people. And gun rights were taken away in Canada because of this event. Again, I'm always here talking about the Jesuits who gave us the calendar and the language as we know it. April 19th is a very special day to the Jesuits. It's the day in history that Ignatius of Loyola was recognized as the first superior general, again, by the Vatican. And by the way, today's broadcast, February 11th, today is the Vatican's birthday. And you'd never believe who's in D.C. today. It's Netanyahu, and we'll come back to that later. But, okay, so up and down Route 102. We talked about this definitely last time, the Jesuit text Art of War, which has a gematria value of 102. The last time I was on here, I talked about how the federal government simulated the 9/11 attack on June 1st, 2001, an attack by Al-Qaeda, which was 102 days before 9/11 happened. And of course, Art of War equals 102, as does World War, as does Al-Qaeda. And that was a really long war that came out of that many nations participated in, especially the U.S. for 20-some years. Again, for anyone who has not read Art of War, you got to read that text. It's credited to Sun Tzu, but it's the Jesuit priest Father Amiot who published it in 1772 and translated it and republished it in 1772. Without the Jesuits, we probably don't know about Art of War. So 102. So yesterday, February 10th, the day that's now the worst mass shooting in Canada since that one, and going down as one of the worst in their nation's history, the date is written 10-2 in the majority of the world. And if you run the gematria of the name of the school where the shooting happened, where reportedly 10 people died on the 10th, I mean, that sounds like a pretty simple numerology lesson right there, 10 dead on the 10th. But if you run the gematria of the school, it equals 419. And this is being compared to what happened on 419, April 19th. And again, for people who don't know the history of April 19th, I mean, for you Canadians, if any of you are watching, your southern neighbor here, United States, the Revolutionary War began on April 19th. Of course, in more recent history, you had Waco and Oklahoma City on April 19th. And in light of this being the Jesuits, aka the Society of Jesus, Don't forget David Koresh with Waco. He saw himself as a Jesus-like figure. So yeah, just really simple stuff. Running the gematria of that school, 419. What are the odds that it would equal? Again, we're talking about 4 base ciphers: alphabetic order, reverse alphabetic order, both orders with numerology applied. Let's just say that the highest number that you could count to was 419, which obviously we know isn't true. With 4 ciphers, the odds of it equating to 419 would be less than 1%. So you have to take that less than 1%, and you have to think about the date, February 10th or 10/2, a lot like how last time on 419 it was Route 102. Now we're talking about a less than 1% times a less than 1%. Now we're getting astronomical. And I think that's something people don't appreciate about this knowledge, because really what we're revealing every single day are things that are astronomical in odds, meaning they're improbable, but they happen day after day. And did you see the recent Benghazi headline, just to make a point too, just from days ago?
I did not, no.
Do you remember Benghazi? The right wing blamed it on Hillary. And again, I'd encourage you guys to get out of this left-right stuff, because Hillary, Jesuit educated, just like Bill, just like Donald, just like Joe Biden, and start to see this puppet show and who's really managing it. And again, Christian, I really hope you hope. I'm for people to know, I'm advocating for Christian to get a live show going where we bring on a group of his panelists, most of them who blame everything on Jays, if you know what I'm saying. And, we have a friendly debate discussion, because I think a lot of people, it's an echo chamber in the truth community. Jays, Israel, blah, 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 blah. I think all you guys are just missing the mark. And case in point, just the whole Benghazi thing. Benghazi was a big deal when it happened. 11 years to the day of 9/11. I mean, it just more, to me, just like, how don't people see this? I mean, 11 years to the day of 9/11. Are you serious? But, the DOJ announced the capture of the Benghazi mastermind. And his name is Zubair al-Bakush, which in Gematria equates to 87. Just like Superior General equates to 87. Just like the Catholic Church equates to 87. And if I had to give you one guess at how many days after the Superior General's birthday it was, Christian, how many days do you think it was after the Superior General's birthday that this was the national headline?
Blanking out on what you had just referenced. I'm assuming it obviously tied in
87. Just like how
87.
the guy's name equaled 87, like his title equals 87, like the Catholic Church equals 87. 87 days after the Superior General's birthday, we get the headline that they've captured the Benghazi mastermind. This stuff goes on every single day in this nation. And again, for all you guys who think the Jays run everything, here we are with Netanyahu meeting with Trump on the Vatican's birthday. And I'll remind you, Israel was created on the 14th day of the 5th month, 145, like Catholic equates to 145, like there's 145 more chapters in the Catholic Old Testament than Protestant Old Testament. And don't forget, State of Israel equals 201, like the Jesuit order, also like the Holy Bible. And these people are using the Bible as a playbook. And the Bible concludes with revelation about the synagogue of Satan, those who claim to be Jays but are not. There are people within the J community that say those people that advocate for Israel are that synagogue of Satan, because they are not supposed to have their own nation until the Jewish Messiah returns, which will not be until the time of the Third Temple. And that hasn't happened yet, but something tells me their plans for the Third Temple probably are not too far off. So,
and if I understand, I was going to comment in that if I understand correctly, they have to have, they as in, I guess, the Zionists, for lack of a better term, they need to have Iran or some other power hit that the current temple in order to then bring it about, or something to that effect, that they need to have this theatrical element in effect in order to effectuate that.
I know you had a guest on recently who was theorizing how they could get rid of Al-Aqsa Mosque. And what he said is along my speculation too. I mean, if they just went in and just demolished Al-Aqsa Mosque, nobody would be on their side. They'd be like, wow, these people are more evil than evil. But yeah, exactly. That's how I've envisioned it would happen too, is in a major war that, somebody attacks it, and then it does get blamed. And imagine if they do blame it on an Islamic nation, as an Islamic nation takes out one of the most important Islamic holy sites. I imagine that is how they will eventually play the destruction of Al-Aqsa Mosque too. So war will likely be a major component of that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was, in the markets earlier today, and we were talking about oil and the price of oil, shooting up. I think Goldman Sachs speculated that if there's some war or conflict again over in the Middle East, it could shoot up to $300 a barrel, right? And
For people who don't know, they should go back and look at the 3 things that bin Laden asked for before 9/11 happened. And don't forget, bin Laden was a CIA asset. The 3 things that, look it up if you don't know, look up the 3 things that bin Laden asked for. All 3 of those things happened in the days right after 9/11. Funny enough, his three requests, they were all met just right after 9/11. Funny enough.
yeah, that's a lot of people don't know about the CIA element, or for the alphabet agency element with a lot of these people out there.
I'll tell you another one about bin Laden that a lot of people don't know. George W. Bush took office in the 54th U.S. presidential election. Remember, Jesuit order equates to 54. Jesuit order Jesuit order member Adam Weishaupt founded the Illuminati. George W. Bush was a member of Skull and Bones, which models itself after the Illuminati, and it was founded in Bavaria. Bavaria equals 54, like Jesuit order. Again, the Jesuit headquarters is at the Church of the Gesù, Building 54 in Rome. It goes with John Carroll, whose name equals 54, establishing Georgetown at age 54. Osama bin Laden just happened to die on his 54th day of being 54 years old. And just about all of these things really being rituals that are meant to bring about world agendas. After all the fear-mongering of Osama and Saddam Hussein, coincidentally, if you believe in such things, the president of the United States becomes Barack Hussein Obama. And he went to Agenda 2030, the last day of that meeting, which fell on September 27th, the anniversary of the Jesuits being recognized by the Roman Catholic Church. And Obama spoke there on his 54th day of being 54 years old. And if you're saying, well, how does a war on terror fit in with Agenda 2030? You got to think more big picture. 9/11 brought in this surveillance state, the Patriot Act, which circumvented a lot of the Constitution and Bill of Rights, but they did it in the name of safety. And again, that surveillance state is building. Again, Larry Ellison told you from Oracle, he has this vision of everyone wearing a camera and everything being under supervision by the AI, so everyone's on their best behavior. But you see how there's this focus to watch us more and more carefully, to make everything digital so every last thing can be tracked. And that's where it fits in. 9/11 Patriot Act, Agenda 2030 is about, limiting carbon emissions. You can see how there could be a future where we're meant to ration everything, and they can really make sure that we're following the rules because every last thing is tracked. I think last time I was on here, I was telling you I was at a restaurant, and the coaster was about how this company is tracking every last apple in Washington State, which I don't quite believe, but still to the effect of what they're saying, it's just, there's so many little, as technology gets more sophisticated and things get smaller, that you can't have a little tracking tab on every last apple, just like how you pull off those UPC stickers on most things at the grocery store. This is the kind of world we are being taken to, and all of these events, they do mesh.
Wow. Okay. So there are a number of different things I'd like to dive into here, but so going back to the Epstein files. So obviously your thesis is that it's a psyop. This is all part of the theatrical Jesuit clique that is the puppet master of these various actors. And so are we, or is your advice to people to, hey, don't get caught up in digging into the files. It's fruitless. What would your response be to someone where they're like, well, hey, I'm finding, that they are doing XYZ with children. They're involved in rituals. There's references to this and that. What might your response be to that, to those people?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people who are digging into it, they are concerned about those things and they want to see justice. I just say to those people, do you ever see justice come from anything our government has to do? When there's a major problem, they'll always have a hearing and a lot of pointing fingers and shouting, but there's never any justice. Again, if you want a better world, people, it's like we need to focus on what's going on. The things that we know. Our media lies to us every day. Our government lies to us every day. I have no doubt that at the top there are creepers who are doing horrible things to children. Uh, Here, as somebody who used to work in a group home, I worked in a group home in Seattle. It was called Ryther Child Center. And what I noticed is rarely did children ever get adopted from there. Keep in mind, I'm in Seattle, Washington on the West Coast. Anytime children got adopted, they got adopted to the Northeast area, always around Connecticut, New York area. And I thought that was suspicious. And what's interesting is who funded Ryther Child Center was the Knights of Columbus, a Catholic order which is out of New Haven, Connecticut, which is, and if you look, I mean, the Catholic Church has the biggest orphanage network of children in the world. For people who don't know, there's a lot of children in the world that don't have parents for one reason or another. There's a lot of children who both of their parents are in prison, both of their parents are dead. There's just so many stories that get children in the system. And the children who end up in group homes are children who cannot exist in foster care. A lot of these children had really traumatic upbringings. You read the rap sheet that they went through by the age of 5, it would just blow your mind. Parents pipping out their children, all kinds of wicked stuff is happening in this world. But there's children that exist in this world that because of what they went through, in a sense, they're already predators themselves at a young age. You have to be careful. Some of these children know to go in the bathroom and stand up on the toilet stall with the door closed, and they're waiting for another child to come in there because they want to do something like what was done to them. So when you work in a group home, you have to be aware of these settings and make sure these things aren't happening even between the children at very young ages. I mean, it's sad. You see 8-year-olds that already have this predatory behavior. But anyway, the point I'm making is, it is the Catholic Church that funds a lot of these places. And when I see these children all get adopted to it, like what I'm making, the place I worked in Seattle is funded by the Knights of Columbus, and the children who are getting adopted to the same region that the Knights of Columbus headquarters out of. And what I've noticed is I still remember some of the children's names. I can't find any print of these children existing. So I imagine maybe their names get changed. Something must happen because I could remember 20 of these children's names that I work with decades ago. I can't find a single one of them anywhere out there. So it does make me wonder what happens. But I think last time I was on here, I was also telling you things about how Amazon remade the show Utopia about billionaires raising children to use in mass shootings and other ritualistic propaganda, all this evil, wicked stuff that essentially using children to have a mental impact on the rest of the populace through the news. For anyone who missed that broadcast, again, look up this show Utopia. 2 seasons in the UK that came out in 2013, and then a remake in 2020 by Amazon. The main point is billionaires faking a pandemic to depopulate the world, but there's all these other storylines going on with what this billionaire class is doing, including raising children for the most evil and nefarious things. I start to wonder if this could be a pool to recruit children. And again, you could find easily the right types who'd be willing to do certain things because of what they've already experienced as children. But yeah, these aren't the Jays that have all the orphanages. It's the church. And I mean, everybody knows about the legacy of the church in touching children. It's not really a secret, but it's something that it's just like for all you guys who are out there who are so obsessed with Epstein, do you think Epstein had a greater impact on diddling children than the church has? I mean, give me a break. Again, I think Epstein is, just like everything else in the media, a distraction to keep people's eye off the ball. And coming back to what we need to do, again, what we need to do is come to everybody who's concerned about what's going on in the world, there needs to be, like I said, Christian, you could be the great leader of bringing the people of the world, because you're doing an excellent job at getting great minds on your show and great conversations. But again, I do feel that the truth community is an echo chamber of pointing at the Jays in Israel. And I'm telling you guys, I'm pretty sure you're all incorrect. And that's been done to you on purpose by hanging them out there in Hollywood and putting their names disproportionately in the media and giving you things like Larry Silverstein and the people dancing in New Jersey who were sent back after the towers came down. I think all of that stuff has been done deliberately to keep your eye off the ball. And again, If we can come to a consensus about who is really controlling this world, you had G. Edward Griffith on here, and he said, and I don't totally disagree with him, but I do have a good disagreement. I want to make this point right now. He made a point about, listen, it doesn't really matter what group is running things, but if you understand the behaviors of the group, then essentially what he was saying is you won't get beat at the game they play. And I agree with that, but my problem with that is, let's just say, listen, here's what the cabal does. They murder people at night, so just stay in your home at night and you'll be safe. True. The problem is, if we all just stay in our home and keep ourselves safe, these are still getting away with murder and there's no justice. That's my problem. And that's why I think it is important who is identified. And it's not to say it's just the Jesuits, it's just the Catholic Church. But again, I would contend that they are the tip of the spear. And again, you look into things like Freemasonry. Modern Freemasonry is a Jesuit creation. A lot of the tiers, again, you get the tip of the spear, you tip the tip of the spear, you can start to figure out what's going on underneath it. And I do think that humanity does need to organize, network, use communication. And the thing is, if more and more people are working together and coming to the right conclusions and the word spreading, Malcolm Gladwell, he did the book The Tipping Point decades ago. And he made a point that you don't need the majority of people to create a big change. Unless I'm confusing titles, but I think it is The Tipping Point with Malcolm Gladwell. You just need a concentrated minority that really becomes influential to more and more people until you do get that bigger concentration and something happens. I always say this knowledge I'm teaching, this numerology gematria thing, it is so simple to learn. And if you learn it, you're really going to see through the headlines every single day in the sick ritualism that's going on. Did you see on the day that the Super Bowl was played, if you guys didn't pay attention last two, it goes on every year, you guys. In the lead up to the Super Bowl and the days after, so many former players die. I mean, Sonny Jorgensen was announced dead 2 days before the game. He was the champion in 1960, and he played for the other Washington team and the Eagles, another bird flying team. Who wins the Super Bowl? The Washington State team, the Seahawks. Sonny Jorgensen's from Wilmington, North Carolina. Their college team is the Seahawks. He's announced dead 2 days before the game. They saved the death news of Barry Wilburn, who also played for Washington, the other Washington team, and the Eagles. He died the same day as Sonny Jorgensen, but they didn't announce his death until the day of the Super Bowl. Barry Wilburn. Do you want to guess how he died, Christian? Wilburn.
I'm assuming you're making me think he burned, but
that's what they're saying happened, that he burned up in a house fire. And funny enough, the phrase house fire in gematria equates to 106, like this was the 106th season. They call the fans out here in Seattle, I'm in Washington State, they call the fans out here the 12s. Spell out 12s as a word, 106. Seattle WA, 106. Seattle's now won 2 Super Bowls 12 years apart. Again, they were up 12-0 in the game. 12th time they beat the Patriots in the Patriots' 12th Super Bowl. On and on and on. All, like I said, 12th time in NFL history that the score was 29-13. These are perfect scripts. But the other thing about Barry Wilburn's death is his full name in gematria equals 206, which is the Seattle area code. His name is Barry Todd Wilburn. Most simple cipher, 206. Barry died on the 60th day of his age, right before Super Bowl 60. There's so many stories just like this. His birthday is December 9th, 129. Seahawks equals 129. They just became 12-9 versus the Patriots all time. Sam Darnold had 1 passing touchdown to get to 129 for his career. The Seahawks only had a 12-9 score once in their entire franchise history. It was versus the 49ers not long ago, before they just won this Super Bowl in the 49ers stadium. With 666 total yards of offense. What could be more satanic? Not to mention in Revelation 13 talks about calculating the number of the beast. It is a reference to Greek isopsophy, which is the same thing as Hebrew gematria. I just see, I saw one of your recent guests, you asked him about my work. He said, yeah, I think I used to watch him. It's just like, you used to watch me. Why would you stop watching every day? And then he's next breath, he's talking about how he thinks Tucker Carlson's legit. This is part of the psychology of optics and big numbers and being popular. I'm somebody who's shadow banned and deleted a million times, so I look completely insignificant. Obviously, Tucker Carlson's part of the system. I don't know how anyone can think Tucker Carlson's legit. He spent a decade on TV demonizing anybody who questioned anything that came from the establishment or authority, using all the typical slang terms that you're used to, from conspiracy theorist to wackadoodle to tinfoil hat, et cetera, et cetera. That's who Tucker Carlson was. And sure, maybe he has changed or maybe he hasn't. Maybe he's just playing this new character for the money and views it brings him, because I'm sure he's getting quite wealthy off the internet being the person he is. Tucker Carlson is too little too late. And for anybody to advocate for that, man, again, this is somebody who for a decade cemented demonizing anybody who was right about one of the biggest lies of our lifetime, 9/11. And again, that was something that has made us all poor, because so much money was wasted on that war, which has destroyed the value of the dollar, like so many other things done by this government. And again, how many lives have been lost? Not just American lives, but just other people's lives. It didn't make the world safer. It made the world less safe. And by the way, you guys should all see how big the lies are, because haven't we had an open border? In the days after 9/11, they were telling us that these terrorists with suitcase bombs could sneak in anywhere. It looks like that wasn't ever real, or wouldn't it already happened a million times? It's just, anyway, Tucker Carlson is part of that group. And no, to me, these people, I guess forgiveness is a nice thing, but I could never trust a person like Tucker Carlson based on what his real history is. And sorry, I'm getting tangential again, which is my MO, but back to you, Christian.
Well, I thought I'd ask in that, how do you see these orders effectuated? I mean, on one side of the spectrum, you might say that these people are aware of the cabal and they're just following orders. Some might think it. I'm picturing a scene from The Simpsons with Mr. Burns at the table there. That's perhaps on one far side of the spectrum, and then the other side is that they have people influencing them, or they are being influenced. They're totally bereft of it. They have no awareness whatsoever that of the nature of the cabal. They're just being prodded along. Where are you in that spectrum? Well, let's say with Tucker Carlson or these celebrities who are dying, or et cetera.
Well, again, when it comes to the media, there's some central news sources that put out the stories and talking points of the day, and they'll get syndicated to all the networks, including CNN, where Tucker Carlson used to work, including Fox, where he worked later before he left there. And you see what they do. They all put their different spin on it. CNN and Fox for weeks there completely focused on the Renee Good story. It's the same story, but on CNN, it looked like she was turning away. It looked like the agent might have executed her without need. On Fox News, they're focused on, man, it looked like she was trying to run him over. Here, new details. He got drugged by a car, so he's already on pins and needles over something like this. And so again, they're the same stories, but if you work for that network, you need to talk about it this way. If you work for this network, you need to cover it this way. And this is what keeps the populace divided in the echo chambers that they're in. But yeah, again, whatever the thing is that is putting out the talking points and the stories of the day, that's the source. And if that's all coming down from, let's say, a Jesuit cabal, which is what I would maintain it is, because again, you guys, every single day, these stories are synced with the Pope and the Superior General, day after day. And it's lucrative to know these things. Last Wednesday, you guys, historic upset in college basketball. Portland, the Pilots Catholic school, upset Gonzaga as a 22.5-point underdog. The Portland coach got his 143rd win that day. And sorry, it's a little bit tangential, but just to make a point about just being aware of this, because it's from the news to the sports, the same thing. The Portland coach, a Catholic school, beat the Jesuit school 143 days after the Pope's birthday. And the Portland coach got his 143rd career win. And what's interesting is Wednesday equals 143. With Portland, he got his 68th win with Portland, but his 143rd win, including the other schools he's coached. That same day, Mickey Lolich, a Portland celebrity, a World Series champion who played for the Detroit Tigers, Mickey Lolich, who won the World Series in 68, drops dead that day at 85. Now, that's interesting because basketball equals 85. And you might recall the first March Madness tournament was in 85. And who won that? The Catholic school Villanova defeated the Jesuit school Georgetown. And that day, last Wednesday, it wasn't just that. There were just so many rituals with the Catholic Church and the Jesuit schools perfectly in coordination with the Pope. From the news to the sports, day after day, you can see how these stories are in sync, again, with the Pope and the Superior General, a.k.a. the Black Pope. If you ever heard that phrase, Black Pope, that's the leader of the Jesuits, who right now is Arturo Sosa. And again, one of the biggest stories last year, Charlie Kirk, dead at 31. Arturo Sosa's the 31st Superior General. Arturo Sosa's date of birth, or not date of birth, excuse me, the day he became Superior General is October 14th, the same day that was Charlie Kirk's birthday. And I don't want to go into it right now, but I need to come back to the Super Bowl and tell you something major about Charlie Kirk, because there was a major tribute to him. Again, Charlie Kirk equals 60, like Donald Trump. Their assassinations 60 weeks apart, almost Super Bowl 60. But yeah, again, just, I'm sorry, I got tangential, but this knowledge, it allows you to see what that source is dropping the stories. And then if you wise up to the game, instead of getting invested like, oh, I only watch Fox or I only watch CNN or MS Now, which used to be MSNBC, or again, you see that all of them kind of cater to one audience more than another. And you really start to see like, well, if I'm listening here and I'm listening here, I'm getting just two totally different stories. How about I just take a step back and say, wait a minute, is this a game to keep me choosing sides and two sides that really at the end of the day have no impact on my life? Again, I was trying to come back. You asked me something earlier. How do we change this? I say stay focused on the things that actually matter. An evil cabal hurting children? Yeah, I think it's horrible and it needs to be stopped in its tracks. But from where all of us stand and sit, that's not something we can do from where we are. That's going to take a major collective effort stopping a very corrupt system. And if we stop the corrupt system, a lot of things topple all at once. But again, what are the things that are being done to us, all of us, every single day that we really should come together collectively to stop? Again, being lied to, and I would say being overtaxed. And that overtaxation is creating a massive pool of money for a very, very corrupt entities that are being used for disgusting things like potentially the trafficking of human beings, trafficking drugs into our country, all kinds of things. Again, that's why every day they got to bombard our minds with new things to think about. And to me, it keeps us off what we should be thinking about. At the beginning of this country, a lot of people were trying to escape the indulgences of the Catholic Church and overtaxation, where the Catholic Church largely was the government of Europe. Look at us today. I mean, the tax rates are insane. Literally, we are taxed on almost every single thing we do, and at growing and growing rates. I have a commercial property where this year the city decided the property is worth double. So overnight they have effectively doubled my tax rate for that property, along with everybody else who's there. And again, it's not like it was a fair price for it. It's just we are getting abused. We are getting abused. And where is our money really going to? And for people on the left, I imagine, Christian, there's probably not a whole lot of people on the left listening to your show just because it's mostly conspiracy oriented. And I've noticed that's my one thing I'll give the right. They're more willing to think about and consider conspiracy, which we really should, because the world is a conspiracy. But again, some of you on the left will be like, no, we need the money for our schools. Listen, I want our children to be the best and brightest they can be too, but let's be real. We spend a ton per capita on students, and we're producing some of the dumbest children in the Western world, and it's been that way for all of our lifetime. You go to the biggest and best jobs here in the U.S., which are mostly on the West Coast with big tech. Are there Americans working there? No, there's not. There's a lot of Indians working there, and why don't you look at how little they spend on education in India? It is such a teeny tiny fraction compared to what we spend per student, yet these people have a much better education. And why is that? It's because their curriculum is about learning things that matter. Reading, writing, grammar, critical thinking, math, science. It's not a bunch of history that's mostly a bunch of hogwash and meant to make you patriotic and believe that your country is way greater than every other country. They're focused on things that are going to pay the bills at the end of the day. We can do the exact same thing here in the U.S. And what I would love to see from leadership, if we actually had real leaders rather than these, these bought and paid for stooges. It doesn't matter what party they get in there and represent. Again, I don't know what. It's not a hard thing to figure out. Major money from major corporations is what's in the pockets of all of these politicians. And people are like, no, not Trump. What are you talking about? Sheldon Adelstein bankrolled Trump the first time around, and he owns casinos. And, of course, his wife, after he died, took over the Dallas Mavericks, and they just happened to go to the NBA Finals. What a joke. But again, our politicians are bought and paid for, and that's why you don't ever see these people get up there and give a real speech about leadership. I mean, if I was the president of the United States, I would get out every day, and I wouldn't talk about myself like Trump does and gloat about all this crap. I'd be talking about, you know what? Hey, kids, today we need you to go in and really focus. This nation needs doctors. We have a shortage of doctors right now in the world. I want you to imagine your parents are out there struggling to pay their health insurance bills. Let's imagine a new world where we have a plethora of doctors, and you didn't go into medicine for money. You went into medicine because you want to save lives and you want to help people and you want to overcome all these epidemics. Again, it could happen. Instead of letting our children be motivated by Hollywood and thinking they're going to be the next movie star or singer, which probably isn't the case, because you start to look into what we're looking into, you start to see how a lot of these guys are actually born and bred to be, and they're going to fill the future Seahawks roster. Again, it might be a complicated thing, but you just start to look at these people in the NFL. Number 21, I don't want to get into it. Number 21, who was one of the biggest players of the game for the Seahawks. He was playing on the 60th day of his age. He was in on 2 major turnovers. He put the Seahawks up 21 points in the 21st Super Bowl on NBC and the 21st meeting of teams. When the last Super Bowl between the Seahawks and Patriots came down to Russell Wilson's 21st pass, getting intercepted by number 21, Malcolm Butler, to give Brady his 21st postseason win. You start to look year after year. I mean, what are the odds that number 21 would be playing in Super Bowl 60 on the 60th day of his age? And there's a lot more. His name literally equals Seahawks. Again, we need a reality check about the world. Almost all of us in America, I don't know if it was true for you, but I mean, myself, almost all of us were growing up wanting to be some kind of celebrity, some kind of athlete, movie star, singer. We need real priorities. Hey, just like these Indian kids, let's focus on being as smart as we can, understanding this material, and make sure that when we're at a young age, we're setting ourselves up for a great future. We're going to be doctors. We're going to be engineers. We're going to be builders, et cetera, et cetera. This is the kind of stuff that I feel like we should see from our leadership all the time. And again, I mean, when you're a little kid and you see the president talk, especially if they're addressing you, I mean, it's just like, wow. That's what it should be. And again, I feel like in the United States we waste a lot of time in school. I knew things I wanted to be when I was a lot younger. I wish instead of going into middle school and high school and learning about a lot of the same lessons over and over, I wish I could have gone on some track to be a doctor. I always thought I wanted to be a doctor, but I knew I was a little bit squeamish. Maybe at a younger age, that I got in there and said, okay, kid, this is the class where we learn that we might be squeamish, but here's how we learn how to get over it. Again, there should just be, and this is what they're doing in other countries. They're getting these students on the right track where they excel what they're interested in. And then boom, next thing you know, you got all these young Indian computer engineers over here making $200,000, $300,000. And some of them just have, there was 3 months when I was moving from Seattle to where my wife was going to school where I had downtime, and I just decided for fun I was going to drive Uber and Lyft. And what I did is I tried to start up conversations about exactly what we're talking about right now. And some people I just had to kill the conversation because tell they weren't interested. But I remember picking up this young Indian guy, and he was gloating about how much money he made. I don't know if you guys know, but Google on Friday, it's great to be a Google employee on Friday. I mean, they get all the nicest food. They get a drink on campus. They have a party. They have all this fun stuff to do. But I picked this guy up after a party, and he's telling me, he's like, I have the greatest job. I make $300,000 a year, and all I do is design emojis. And I just thought, listen to that. $300K a year designing emojis. I mean, you don't think an American would love that job? The reason they don't have that job is because their school wasted their time and didn't get them on the right track. And it's getting even worse and worse in the United States. As someone who used to teach, The last time I was in the school system, they were trying to introduce 10 different math concepts at once to second graders. Like, okay, I mean, how can this even be a possibility? Math, you need repetition, you need mastery, not 10 different concepts thrown at you at once, and you spend 3 days on each one. I mean, this is a joke. You guys, this stuff, that's what I mean. The real thing in the U.S. is they do want us dumb. Like that book was written years ago by an insider in the education, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. Again, there are real things that matter to all of us. They're making our children dumber. They're introducing all these ideas to them like we know that don't need to be there. Again, we're paying way too much in taxes. People are destroyed when they have a health problem. Overnight, their entire savings can evaporate like that because of how much medical bills are. None of this stuff has to be this way, but it is this way for a reason. And it's because they do want to phase us out of here. And there is a very greedy ruling class that knows they can just extract all of our wealth with one little mishap, one little health problem. And by the way, look at what they feed us. All the processed crap, for years, the U.S. has subsidized sugar ahead of every other thing they subsidize in food. Sugar, the greatest fuel of cancer in the human body. And for anybody who doesn't know that, here's the proof. The highest rate of sugar consumption in the world there's a lot of research on what sugar does for stimulating cancer in the body and illness. And by the way, just about how illness works, I try to keep sugar out of my body. My wife brought home a thing of Sour Patch Kids about a month and a half ago. And I used to love those when I was a kid. But I'm not used to eating that kind of stuff. But I couldn't, it was just there and it was sitting there for days. And then one day I just gave in. And I just devoured this whole pack of Sour Patch Kids. I hadn't been sick in 5 years. I ended up, now I'm sure there were some other contributing factors, but it clearly weakened my immune system because I ended up catching the flu and I couldn't get rid of this thing for 2 weeks. And again, I know it had something to do with eating all that sugary crap. Sugar is so bad for us. And again, here's a government that's subsidizing sugar. I mean, we go to the store and a lot of people would like to eat healthy food, but they can't afford it because it costs so much. If we're subsidizing this instead of sugar, guess what? All that processed crap on the shelf, it's costing if we're not subsidizing all that processed stuff on the shelf, it's costing a lot more than what we pay. If instead we're subsidizing healthy fruits and vegetables, it's now a lot more affordable. Our system hasn't done that because they want us sick because we're such money makers, unhealthy. And look at what they've done with the pharmaceutical industry. Christian, I doubt you remember this because you were probably too young. Again, I'm 10 years older than you. When you were about born, early 90s, I had parents that used to give me free rein. I would ride my bicycle everywhere. A 3 square mile area where my friends were, I'd ride my bike all the time to their house. And when I was growing up at first, there was one pharmacy in that 3 square mile area. It was called High School Pharmacy. And it was in the early 90s. At the same time I riding my bike, I just started to notice, whoa, they're building another pharmacy right across the street from High School Pharmacy. I'm riding my bike down maybe a half mile. Here's another pharmacy going up. I'm going over here to my friend's house. They're building another pharmacy here. As a kid, I was like, why are there so many pharmacies all of a sudden around? It's interesting. It was around the same time that they phased out smoking cigarettes. And I'm not saying that smoking cigarettes is healthy, but at that time, if you went into a restaurant, everybody was smoking. It didn't matter if you sat in the smoking section or the non-smoking section. The whole restaurant smelled like smoke. Everybody smoked back then. But if you go back and look, almost everybody was healthier back then. And there was way less rates of cancer. I'm not saying that smoking is what was making people healthy, but when people stopped smoking, a lot of people started eating more junky trash food because that is the thing about smoking. A lot of women like to smoke because it kept them thin because it suppresses their appetite. So now you have a society that's binging way more on all this junk food that's full of crap. Plus, people are more social. A lot of people would go hang out outside and talk to other people smoking and give them a light and bum a cigarette. And I think there is something healthy about socializing. So less people are socializing. But also, there are some mental benefits for some people from smoking, and now they're not smoking, so now they're taking pharmaceutical drugs instead. These things happen at the same time. The major push of pharmaceuticals and the end of smoking. There's some kind of intersection here that is really interesting, and it would be better if probably people weren't smoking and they also weren't doing the drugs. But I'm just making a point that something happened in society very rapidly at that time. And you can see that now people are way less healthy than they ever were. And there's more disease and illness in children. And part of that is because children aren't moving around. The parks are empty. They're sitting in front of the screens. They're eating the Cheetos and the processed food, and they're not moving their body. Again, when we were children, we still ate junk food, but we were out playing and moving, and that makes all the difference. You're burning off all the calories. It's good for your body to move. We're meant to move. So again, I mean, these are the things we need to be focused on. For anyone who's my age or older, we know how drastically society has moved in this direction, and nothing is better. Less health, less wealth, all kinds of social problems, all kinds of mental problems. Again, they say 2/3 of America right now is on an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety or an antipsychotic. And some people are on all of them. And just about that, also from working in group homes, here's what's tragic about group homes. A child comes in and there's a doctor there right away who just puts them on a whole assortment of drugs just out of the gate. And they just drug the bejesus out of these children. And you see the way it works. There's some children that have really severe behavioral disorders and they're violent and they will hurt people and they'll destroy property. So what the doctor will do is pretty much zonk them out. Here, give them a whole bunch of this so they're like a zonked out zombie. But then you see what happens. 2 weeks' time, their body has adjusted. So what's the doctor coming down? Let's up the dose. Let's up the dose. You would a little 5-year-old that probably weighs 50 pounds just shoveling drugs down their throat. It's symbolic of also what's happened to the nation. So anyway, I'm going all over the place. But again, these are the things that really matter. Jeffrey Epstein and pedophilia and all this, it matters. But we that's so hard for any of us to touch. Humanity comes together as a collective and says, I'm done with being lied to. I'm done of voting for the lesser of two evils. It's so obvious no matter what party goes in there, they don't follow through with the things they say they're going to do. You should know this if you're a Democrat or Republican. 2008, the Democrats get the House, both the Senate and the Congress and the Oval Office. Now, Obama never said anything about ending the wars. And I was telling people back then, because I was living in very liberal Seattle, and I was telling everybody that Obama was just another little puppet of the system. But they're like, no, he's going to get in there and they're going to end the wars. Do they get in there and end the wars? No, they get in there and they spend even more money on the wars and they escalate the wars. And Obama does even more drone bombing, more mockery. Has Seattle changed? No, they're still voting the same way. Trump made all these promises. How did those promises go? He didn't deliver on anything. It's just, humanity needs to come together and end this corrupt system, and we really do need to. It's hard to say. It's a mountain ahead of us, but these are the things we need to be focused on: the deteriorating conditions for everyone, especially children. I always say it's so unfair to be a child in today's age because the parents are so full of fear. I don't know if you've been in a public school lately, but they do so many mass shooting drills. It's just ridiculous. I mean, think about that. Being in school as a child, worried that you're going to get shot up at any minute. What is that doing for their brains? It could be them any minute. And you start to research. That's the beauty of this knowledge. You can see that almost all of these mass shooting stories are just perfect government drills with the same exact patterns. 44 is a huge one because shooting equals 44, mass shooter 44, gunfire 44, officer 44. I'd encourage everybody to look up the footage from CNN from about a decade ago where they were working with a Colorado police department. And think about that, too. It was a Colorado police department, like Columbine really kicked this stuff off at the end of the 90s in Colorado. But the Colorado police department was explaining that, yeah, we do mass shooting drills all the time in public unannounced to add to the realism. And they said we do them in schools, we do them in malls, we do them in public places. I was like, look at this. They're putting this on CNN. This is what's going on, you guys. A lot of these mass shootings that they tell you that happen with no real evidence, again, the damage is done because people believe what they see on TV. It doesn't matter if it happened or not. You have more and more people living with the fear, and especially this young generation who no doubt, as they become more and more of age, are going to vote away more and more of their rights and liberties because they were scared out of them, and they remembered what it was to go to school for 13 years every day thinking that they might be the next shooting victim. Again, that's why it's just... this is the stuff that needs to be stopped in its tracks, along with anything that might be Epsteinish. But priority list. I mean, is that really the number one priority for most of us? I'd say the number one priority is not being lied to by our government, not being overtaxed, and not having our children made more stupid purposefully in school, which no doubt they're doing. So,
Well, I'll comment in, I'll touch on the state of society and healthcare and people's health in general that you mentioned earlier. In that, I see it around me. I see a lot more people overweight. I get the vibe that a lot more people are not doing as well. I mean, that's very evident, of course, and it is amazing. When I go to the gym, I'll go to the gym here later today, and every other commercial is a pharmaceutical commercial. It's just asinine to me. And I wanted to mention, because I think this is so important, and I found this out in around 2012 or so. I shared this on another podcast. Maybe you had heard it, but what I've realized is that a lot of what people experience mentally or even physically is derived from stress. And I can say that from firsthand personal experience with what 100% this is the case. And for example, someone will have sciatica, and they'll think there's something wrong with their back. So what happens? Well, you need to take these medications, you need to get electrocuted, or you need to go to physical therapy, you need to do surgery, and it just throws them in a huge rut. Or they have OCD, or they have thoughts, or they have all these manifestations of anxiety, or physical pain, etc. It's all mental. At least in my opinion, that is what I've arrived at. And it's fascinating how a lot of people are not aware of that, and their immediate reaction is take drugs, take this, take that, and it is so damaging to people. Not only their health. I had somebody who I remember I was in the Navy with, and we went in training together, and I hadn't heard. So we were in training. I tried out for a special warfare program in the Navy. Didn't work out, but I learned a lot from that experience. That was a kick in the teeth, and I kept in touch with this person that I'd gone through this program with, and I hadn't heard from him in a year and a half, 2 years, and I thought, I don't know, maybe he doesn't care to keep in touch. You want to keep in touch with people from time to time. And all I heard from a buddy who I was also in the Navy with, he mentioned that he killed himself. I was like, what the hell? And mind you, these people in the program that I was in, these people are very dialed in physically, mentally. This is not regular Navy. This is special warfare. And so anyhow, he had taken a gun to himself. But why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because he was taking Adderall or something, and he was also depressed, and perhaps there were other things going on, with his girlfriend, and he killed himself. And so there's a lot of that out there. I mean, and so
there is. You bring that. My mom's neighbor, a few houses down, plumber, young guy. He recently had to move back in with his family, financial struggles like a lot of people, early 30s. And his parents decided to help him out. They were going to get him in therapy. And of course, the therapist right away gave him an antidepressant. 2 weeks after starting therapy, they come home, and to make a long story short, brain matter all over the wall. And my mom was shocked to hear this, because she said, I always thought he was a happy-go-lucky guy. He's a plumber, and he'd helped my mom out numerous times just in the last year. Her home's 30-some years old, starting to get some drips in the faucet and stuff, tightening things up, putting the seal back on the toilet. And I said, Mom, it's hard to tell how people actually are, but yeah, getting put on the drugs, and then 2 weeks later, I wonder how his parents feel. They're trying to help him out, and they're probably questioning now. But it's just like when you watch, like you said, that was the other thing. When I was growing up, there was a lot of cigarette commercials on TV. There was no pharmaceutical. I think they changed the law in the early 2000s, I think, under Bush. And then all of a sudden, there's been a ton of pharmaceutical ads on TV, but it's gotten worse as time. It's just like you watch the nightly news. It's pretty much all pharmaceutical ads, all this depressing information. And then right here here's the solution. Take the drugs. Watch our depressing information. Take these drugs. But you listen to the side effects. You're just like, how could anybody ever even want to take that? And I just heard something for the first time, a drug commercial I'd never heard of. It's a cancer treatment, and they're going through the 30-second wrap of side effects, and it even says could cause worse cancer. But then I heard something I never heard before. It's a radiation treatment. I'm going to have to look up what this is. I just saw the commercial for the first time. It's a drug you take that is a radiation treatment, so kind of like chemotherapy in a pill. And then it says at the end of the ad, talk to your doctor to learn how not to negatively impact the people from the radiation around you. And I'm thinking, so you mean I can be out in public and this person can be on this radioactive drug? We can be standing next to each other in the line at the grocery store. And see, this is why it's just getting so crazy. And the reality is, most of us don't have the health problems we're dying from if we're eating right, if we're maintaining your stress. What's the first rule of Hermeticism? All is mental. And I think that is so true. All is mental. How many studies, you know what, my mom cleans houses. When I was a child, I would help her clean houses in the summer. When I was a child, her number one client was a retirement center, not for the most well-to-do, but I just see it happen all the time. A married couple would still be together. One would die, and the very next day or 2 days later, just a few days later, the next one would die. No doubt from broken heart. Mental, you know? You know the other partner hadn't died. They weren't going to die the next day or 2 days later, but just the toll of the mental. And we've all had these, I mean, yeah, like you say, you go out with a positive attitude. I mean, yeah, that's why I love the 7 Hermetic principles. The first one is all is mental. I can't remember if it's a Malcolm Gladwell book, but he points out there's this little village somewhere in Pennsylvania where it's all Italian. It's 100% Italian. It's a small town. And he points out that almost everybody in this town is way overweight, obese. And it's because they eat so much pasta. And he says they all are statistically alcoholics because they're drinking so much wine every day. But what he points out about the town is, despite the what would normally be health problems, the obesity level, the overweight, all the alcohol drinking, normally things that are bad for your health, he says what's interesting about this town is because they're so social and they have so many get-togethers and they're so community-oriented, they outlive the average American, I forget what it is, by like a decade. Again, that's the mental thing. And again, about us being social creatures, that's another thing they're doing to us. Again, depopulation is a real thing. People have never been more isolated. Again, because of these screens and social media and all this stuff, and all the fear, too, and what they did to this younger generation with cooties. We've never been, we've just never been less isolated. And I look at this and I say, yeah, these people know how to make us less healthy, and they know how to get us out of here. And that's why at this day and age, and that's what I mean, too, with the president. I was talking about talking to children, inspiring them. How about talking to the adults? America, we have an obesity crisis. We're spending crazy money on our health. Let's do the basics. Let's take time. Let's make it at least 5 minutes a day. If you're a busy schedule, you can find 5 minutes in your day to do some fitness. And for real, I don't know, 5 minutes a day makes a big difference. It's a lot better than 0 minutes. If you get out and bust out some push-ups and some pull-ups and some sit-ups, that makes a tremendous difference rather than doing 0. It makes it, I mean, you go hard in 5 minutes, you can burn some calories. You can make a difference in your muscle mass. Really, you should put in more than 5 minutes a day. I met an older gentleman sitting at the car dealership a few weeks ago, and I couldn't believe how old he was. He was in his mid-80s, and I would have guessed he was in his 60s. And I said, what's your secret? He goes, I spend an hour a day doing something fitness, at least walking. And he said a line back to me I'd never heard before. He said, you know what 1 hour is in a day? He goes, not even 5% of your day. Not even 5%. So if you can't take out at least 5% of your day to take care of your body, what are you really doing? I said, yeah, great point. But yeah, I mean but what's our president doing instead? He's telling you to eat McDonald's. I mean, unbelievable. This is the great leader. Yeah, right. No, that's the last thing you should be doing. You should be eating non-processed food. You should be exercising. You should be moving your body. If all of us are doing this, we're all a lot better off for it. And again, why don't well, you might say we have a RFK Jr. in there right now advocating for these things. But look at how the media treats him, right? Like he's some kind of cuckoo nut. And that's all part of the thing, too. So now, and it's crazy. People like my sister, who used to like RFK Jr. because he was a liberal for many years. People don't know RFK Jr. I mean, he's pretty entrenched in the liberal camp for decades, but now he links up with Trump, and now he's considered a right-winger. And people like my sister used to like him because they're so entrenched in politics. They don't like it. It's like, come on. My sister's name's Jen. Jen, he's advocating for eating healthy. He's talking about not subsidizing sugar. These are the exact things that should be going on, but now you guys won't even entertain it. And that's exactly how they play us. But yeah, sorry, Christian. Go ahead, please.
Well, yeah, just to further add to that, it is that is the theatrics at play, of course, and I lost my train of thought there, but I was just thinking as it relates to just health in general. You mentioned all is mental. I haven't sat down and read the whole thing, but I'm aware of the main hermetic principles. But yeah,
that is the main one. All is mental. Number one.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I've got, and I'll mention this here. This is tangential, but related to the health thing. What was the food pyramid in the 90s and the early 2000s, which was at the base of it, if I'm not mistaken, was carbohydrates. Now it's the inverse. And I just found with myself, I was on a more or less carnivore diet, and I'll eat some fruit and things of that nature. No bloating. I go back. I introduce whole wheat. All of a sudden, bloating. It's just so funny how it's like it's such an inverse. Whatever they tell you, it's almost as if it's just a lie. It's intended to make you ill and sick. And then what the other thing I was going to mention, you mentioned the mental part. Just your mindset. And I just thought I'd share. It might sound really cheesy and corny. We hear it, but I'm telling you, I swear by it. Immediately when I wake up, and literally right before I pass out, like I fall asleep, right? Of course, it sneaks up on you when you don't know necessarily when you're just going to just get conk out, so to speak. I write, it sounds really cheesy, corny, so bear with me, those listening. I religiously write out those affirmations, like as if, and there is for sure power. And then to speak it and to say it. So if you're listening and you're not doing it, do it. It will work wonders. And then I also want to comment, people, as it relates to, I think I'm saying right, the Kimbalan Hermetic philosophy, right? I hear people talk about Kabbalion. Look at that, I can't even pronounce it. I was also going to comment in that, hear people talk down to themselves, even jokingly. It's so like so much of it is just a fucking mental game. It's all mental.
Yeah. Positive affirmations are a big deal. That's actually something they do teach to the children in the group home, that is a positive thing to look in the mirror and say positive things. And journaling is a great practice. Journaling your thoughts and ideas. That's always been recommended for health. And it is interesting to go back and look at a journal and see the way you were thinking or what your thought was or how that idea or that thing you said you're going to go out and do, how it manifested. Yeah, the power of words and thinking is huge. Something that's interesting in my life is my wife comes from Burma, and it was shortly after I met her that I learned about what I did. And part of the reason that is because the one thing we weren't on the same page on when we got together is she was very much in the Christian faith. Burma is divided into 7 states, and her state's called the Kachin state. And that was a state that missionaries from the church came to and brought Christianity to. And Burma, for people don't know, has the longest ongoing civil war. George Orwell's first book, Burmese Days, is about his time in Burma and what's going on in that country, for people don't know. But Burma's had a civil war for over 50 years, and it's all religious infighting, and it also has a lot to do with China next door that pays the military to mess with the country, and it allows them to pull the gem. There's a lot of Burma's rich with gems, jade, and whatnot. Extract it from the country. It's a giant fiasco. But the reason I'm bringing this up is her grandmother in the village she lived in, she was considered the medicine woman. And the way she practiced medicine was, some basic plants from the area, but a lot of it was words. And for example, people would come to her and say, my cow has an infection. It has a giant cut on its right leg. She'd go out and mix the leaves, and she has to say specific words for that injured part of the cow. And she would explain to my wife, who would have been, her little granddaughter, is the words have to be just right or it will not work. And again, she's recognized as the medicine woman because whatever she was doing, the people at least thought that, it made the difference. And, again, it's like old world. I mean, this is kind of how shamans were back in the day. So And here in the West, we look at stuff like that, and it's even hard. I'm like, how could that ever be? The right words said to the wound makes the wound heal. Anyway, over there, it's understood that that is the real practice, and that's what you do. You get the right person who knows the right words. And I found that interesting because she asked me to start reading the Bible when we got together, and I did that because I liked everything about. We're on a little bit different religious page, and again, I've explained that I grew up Lutheran, but at age 12, I kind of started to question things and say, I'm not sure about all this, and it seems like religion's the great divider of the world. But there's definitely good things in every spiritual teaching, and I try to take the good and get rid of the rest of the dogma. But anyway, when we got together, I started reading the Bible, and it reminded me again, when I was a child, it used to drive me nuts how there's all these specific numbers in the Bible, and there's no explanation for what those numbers mean. But then I started asking that question again, and then it also tied in with how for years I'd witnessed these numerical patterns that just didn't seem to be there, need to be there in the news story. It seemed like there's some kind of ritualism with numbers, and no doubt there is. And no doubt this all traces back to the church. But yeah, there is definitely just these simple things that a lot of people will roll their eyes at. Like, how could a positive affirmation, can it be? It is. Just all of this stuff matters. Mindset, the words we use. Hermeticism, it says everything carries a vibration, and these vibrations have a real world impact on us. I think had we been brought up with all this old world knowledge and taught us in a complete way, and I think it's impossible at this day and age, because even when you read the Kabbalion, it's going to have all these things, but you'll be left with more questions than answers. Somewhere out there, maybe in the Vatican's library, is the rest of the Kabbalion that was cut out, just like how they've taken sections out of the Bible. I just think we need to become more open-minded, and we really need to entertain a lot of these old world ideas, and just things as simple as, yes, how important it is to have a positive mindset, how important it is to say things like, I can do it, I will do it, rather than, oh no, I'm not good at that, or I'll never. You say that, you're going to stay bad at it, and you're not going to figure it out. Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's why when I look at the children today, I'm sure there's just so much more negative attitude inside children today. All the fear. When I was a child, my elementary school had about 500 kids. There was one kid that was overweight, and people bullied him and were mean to him. I still remember his name. You go to an elementary school now, it's normal to be overweight. And maybe in a sense, that's good for the overweight kids, but it's not good for children. It's like, what's their life expectancy, and how do they really feel inside? And I mean, you're out playing a game and you're probably exhausted well, they don't even go outside and play games anymore. It's just, anyway, I'm getting tangential again, but please let me pass it back to you, Christian.
Well, that all ties in with the overarching thesis of depopulation. And, again, I say, it is discussed ad nauseum on my channel. But it sounds so astounding when you go out in public and you talk. I have to remember sometimes, because sometimes I'm so in my own world of just talking about this stuff, and to your point with people being sequestered, I'm more sequestered than I've ever been, and I have, thankfully, a lot of contacts, a lot of great people in my life, a lot of friends, but just where I'm at geographically, and also just wanting to be really focused, I'm not getting out as much, candidly. And so it is interesting, how it works its way. But totally lost my train of thought there. Need some more caffeine in me. But what was I getting at? Wow, totally blanking out here. But yeah, it's
bring up something that you were just saying that I heard you say in an interview recently that I think is related and everybody's going through, and I understand why. You were talking about how you were almost married once, and now with the state of affairs, you're not sure that you ever want to go that route. And I know that's a common thought. If you want to talk more on that,
sure.
I'd be happy to chime in with my thoughts about that and my advice for any men who do get into a marriage.
Sure. So, I'll just say in that, I know typically the term is associated with red pill out there, and sometimes that can have a very negative connotation. I think I'll just preface with this. In my opinion, the world doesn't care about men. As a man, who are you to lean on in life? You're expected to have your shit together. When they talk about the atrocities going on over in Gaza, you always hear about the women and children. And granted, women and children are important. You never hear about the men. I've never heard of a men's shelter for abused men. I've never heard any. I've heard of women's abuse shelter. I've heard of for kids. I've never heard it for men. So I would say I've become very cognizant that in the world, or at least what it is expected of you, you're expected to have your shit together. And I suspect that's why men are way more likely to kill themselves, et cetera, et cetera. Now, as it relates, and that also ties in with the relationship dynamics, and then just very tangential. That's our word we love to use, right? but it also is very fascinating in that everything comes down back to the economics, right? The economics explain the intersex dynamic as it relates to marriage, one's ability to provide for themselves, self-esteem, mental. It just all ties in. So that's off topic. But back to the relationship side, I think in 2026, excuse me, if it was 1926. I think you're in a world and environment that's very conducive to being married. You're in a society that is, by and large, religious and supports the institution of it. You don't have governments, at least to my recollection, not as involved. I think today it can be a very dangerous and very challenging environment to navigate. What am I getting at exactly? I know I'm going off on a monologue here, but I'm in California, the state of California. A lot of men, you will lose your shirt. You may not be able to see your kids, right? A lot of mental health. I've known a lot of these people. Very serious stuff that is a product of being legally married and then having a third party telling another grown man what you can and can't do, et cetera. And I don't mean to sound one side completely biased, but my thoughts on it are, I like the idea of being married. I like the idea of, I think we're designed to have a woman in our life. And I think that serves as a counterweight. And I think a man and woman will complement each other. It's a very different environment today because of obviously the inculcation that has occurred in media, right? It does not foster a monogamous relationship. You see what is depicted out there in I'm not just saying Gen Z in general, but just polyamory or whatever the term is, open relationships. People go in and get in and out of relationships like they're changing clothing. It does not foster that, and that's obviously whether one is a-religious or otherwise. There was some utility, at least in religion, in that it served as a glue, it served as a foundation. Now we do not have that, and so. So I know I'm giving a long-winded answer here. So yeah, I like the idea of it. And one day I plan to have a family, and I plan to have a legacy and kids. However, I'm glad that I dodged that first starter marriage, if you will, because yes, I did. When I was getting out of the Navy, I was like, it'd be great to have someone in my life. And I think like a lot of men, you're not using the right head, and you end up sometimes inviting somebody in your life where it maybe it's great the first handful of months, but if you don't pick up on the signs, and at that time I was not picking up on those signs, it can lead to a point where, okay, I bought a house, I have someone living with me now. The expectation is that they need to have a ring on their finger. This is, and I can appreciate and I can get that. But I haven't been asked that before, candidly, but I almost got married, and it's never fun to end an engagement. You just you walk away with from those experiences. And but yeah, there's I know I'm just shooting the shit here. I think very few people get it right. I think very few people get it right. I think the cohort that is married, they're often married because they're in either A, for the kids, they don't want to lose half their shit, or they're just kind of complacent with the status quo. I think very few people genuinely feel that both parties feel their needs are being met. And I think men are directionless, more or less, in society. That has been by design to emasculate men, to remove testosterone levels that we see it just continuing to go down, down, and down. We see the feminization of men. I think polarity is so damn important. It's just like a battery, like the plus and minus sign, or dark and light. What is it? Taoism. Like we have to have that polarity. And so I think in a society where it's pushing this, be in touch with your feminine. Well, yeah, if you're a man, if you're having challenges, like go vocalize it. Don't keep it bottled up. I think some of the stuff Tate has said is dangerous in that he says, well, you just need to not be a bitch and depression is made up. No, like if you're depressed, like you need to fucking vocalize it. Do not keep it to yourself. That's dangerous. And so, yeah, wow, I haven't been asked that. I'm collecting my thoughts. That's very personal.
Sure. Yeah. You don't say more than you want to.
Yeah, no, I'm good, but
But yeah, the battle of the sexes is a real thing too. And I mean, you've seen Hollywood's trend for over the last decade. The man's a dope and the woman's the leader of the house. I mean, that's the new trend, and obviously that's a reversal of what most of history's been, at least as long as we understand it. And like you said, you have a problem in your relationship, the state's probably going to destroy the man and take the side of the woman, no matter what's really going on there. So yeah, it is a difficult age to be a man in. And if you do pick a partner, you need to be very selective about who you choose. My wife, hey, for all you guys in the States, again, what they do to us in the States, the way we're programmed, that could be the nice thing about meeting a lady from overseas, because a lot of women do tend to be more conservative from overseas. My wife is a lot more traditional. The one aspect where you'd say maybe isn't totally traditional is she's very educated and has a prominent job. But to me, that's a nice balance. So again, you really got to make sure you pick the right partner. And again, for people who have never been in relationships very long, you better not propose within the first 6 months, because a lot of things usually start to change in a relationship about the 6-month mark. You start to really see some qualities that might not have been there before. But we are in an age where women, just through everything going on, there's something in them, because it's collective. It's the programming. You got to be real patient as a man with your women, and women do have a tendency to have a real hot cold. They're not as straight line as I am. Last night, within 5 minutes, I was the greatest father ever, and then I was worried I was going to get the. She realized I made a mistake with the laundry yesterday. And whoa, I mean, both of us have not gotten a lot of sleep in the last year because of our little one, and that takes a toll too. But yeah, I mean, our relationship, it's just like all things. It's good and bad. But at this day and age, as a man, you better have a lot of patience, or because I just have to hold my tongue a lot. I mean, my little slip up with the laundry last night ruined a pair of her pants, which anyway, but it's not the end of the world. But it's like in my mind, I'm like, okay, I know why she's freaking out like this. It's because we're both tired. We both haven't had a good night's sleep in over a year. And this morning we wake up and everything's good again. Everything's fine. So I just, it is a tough day and age to be a man, and it's a tough day and age to be in a relationship, especially. That's the other thing too. It's just like you said with there are, like all things good and bad, there are nice things about religion, and it not being there, it does make it so that relationships are a lot more questionable, and people's behaviors and their loyalty, and a lot of people will say their vows, but they don't really mean them. And the thing is, though, if we cannot figure out a way, because to me, it's like there really is. It's complicated being a human, because it is hard to just be with one partner for a really long time. But at the same time, if you see what happens to children. A lot of times, if a parent leaves a relationship for a divorce, it has a real impact on their children. My sister's husband, a little bit older than her, he was honest about it. They had 4 children. When they were in their teenage years, he said it was too much for him, and he left the relationship. And I thought that was really weak. I was like, wow, you're going to give up because it's too much for you? And two of the 4 had a real fallout with that, but they've come around now years later. This happened, 6-7 years ago now. It's just, if society is ever going to improve, there has to be good family units, and they have to raise good children. And that's part of the thing too. A thing that destroys a lot of families are financial problems. More and more people are having financial problems too. I look at the younger generation, I'm like, okay, things are so unaffordable for them to ever buy their first house. Just even how much insurance costs for cars. When my nephew a few years ago got his first car, I thought it had to be a mistake how much he was paying for car insurance. I said, no, you must have got the wrong one. Let me look. And then I found out that was a good rate. I was like, what? The best you can do is over $200 a month. I mean, to me, that it wasn't like that when I was 16. I had to pay my own insurance. I forget what it was. It was probably like $30 a month. I mean, sure, it was 20 some years ago, but man, I know the people aren't getting paid, 8, 9, 10 times more than they were when I was in, high school. I think minimum wage back then was $6 an hour. So it's a little more than double now, but the cost of insurance is astronomically higher. And of course, all this stuff fits in with Agenda 2030 and less consumption and less driving and less fossil fuels. Just make everything unaffordable. Then nobody can do anything. And yeah. So anyway, though, I was going to say, I would encourage you to keep looking for that right lady and not give up on the idea, because obviously, Christian, you're a good man. And again, it's going to take good people to raise good children if the world is ever going to change. But it does feel like we really are in a spot where everyone is in a tough position, and they're trying to make it impossible for people to ever really have a good family unit. And again, those are the kind of things that I say while everyone's talking about Epstein. To me, isn't a more important conversation what they've done to all of us and how impossible they've made it. And that's what I mean with just constant just barrage with all this craziness in the news, so we just can't even focus on what probably actually matters in our own lives. So,
well, yeah, I'll also add that I'll go back to the economics of it. It all, I mean, obviously there is, I mean, regardless of your financial standing, I mean, you can still possess virtues that are, conducive to success and your well-being and those around you. But I'll just add as a macro picture in that it to me, at least, a lot of it comes down to the money, our currency, how it's been debased, how it's been manipulated. It's crazy that you have people taking our tax dollars and then using it for nefarious purposes. It is just completely, totally backwards. And, I know, other guests on that I have, and of course I have a new channel where I focus on the markets. Just if people were just aware of what goes on with these private central banks and what is coming down the pipeline that they want to do with these central bank digital currencies, for sure it'll happen over in Europe, and then it'll eventually spread to other areas where everything is on a blockchain. Everything is tokenized, or whatever the term is. It's just digital gulag that they just want to create. Everything is tracked, and we just need to. You mentioned about the cost of living today, right? Go back 100 years ago, what was the cost to buy a property, or even like 80 years ago, 70 years ago, whatever, buying a property. You could literally make peanuts. And you could be, I'm not knocking post office workers, but you could be a post office worker, or you could be a janitor and buy a house and have and have a wife and have 3 kids and your Picatinny fence and your 1950s home. And man, like shit. I mean, and today, so many people are working multiple jobs. They also don't understand the economics of it as to why their purchasing power is depreciating more and more and more. And you have people printing money out of thin air using fractional reserve banking, and it's like a joke. It's a Larkin Rose. I keep hearing about him. I haven't really watched his videos. I know what your take is on him, but I guess he did a video on the Jones Plantation, and it's what's up.
That's his movie. Yeah, he made a film trying to paint the picture of what we live in a simple terms. Yeah.
Is it good? Did you like it, or?
I'm aware of it. I haven't seen it. I like Larkin Rose's sentiment, but he's another person I'm suspicious of at the end of the day. Last year, he put out a video seemingly attacking my work on weather warfare, and he encouraged somebody to challenge his points, and I did, and he just never responded to any of it. So again, there's a group of guys like Larkin Rose and Mark Passio, another name, that hang out together in Maxig, and these guys are kind of cliquey and well-known names, and they put out a lot of truth, but they also won't touch certain things, and sometimes they seem to talk down things that are highly relevant. So it's not to say don't listen to Larkin Rose. For people who are trapped in the political thing, yeah, I think his message is great. He just stays on that message every day. He's trying to figure out a new way to communicate, to get people to see through the two-party manipulation. That is his thing. But then sometimes he'll step out and he'll like, why are you attacking the idea of weather warfare? I mean, this is also something people should be aware of. And if you're going to say, here, challenge me, and then somebody does, and then you don't respond to it, What's that about? So again, it's like I told you the other day. I mean, listen to everyone, but use discernment and don't trust everything they say. So that goes for everybody.
Well, the weather phenomenon with the what is it, HARP, and the geoengineering going on. I mean, I think of the LA fires just 4 hours south of me, or the fires over in Lanai, and
By the
I
way,
guess
just
there's
those horrible fires back in 2018, Paradise in Los Angeles on November 8th. 118 equals death and homicide, but Paradise, California and Los Angeles, California both equal 118. Though that just happened to happen on November 8th, both of those places. And there's a million examples like that. And that's what bothers me about, say, Larkin Rose, is he'll demean that. And so will his buddy Mark Passio. Now, I agree with the majority of things that both of them say, but I'm like, okay, why do they have to knock this? In the case of Mark Passio, who's friends with Larkin Rose, I mean, he's Jesuit educated and a former priest in the Church of Satan, handpicked by Anton LaVey. I'd say, these guys whose names are pretty well known, are they gatekeepers on certain things? That's kind of my suspicion. But that's my own opinion.
Well, I'd like to hear your take, and if you need a pivot, let me know. Ted Gunderson, what is your assessment on him?
I think a lot of things he said are very true. And actually, somebody was just reading to me from a book he wrote. He talked about how this Satanist cabal does everything in numerical ritual. Yeah, sounds about right to me. And again, for everyone to say, well, Satanist, is that the Catholic Church? Hey, look into the Church of Satan. It's got their fingerprints all over its establishment and the death of Anton LaVey. And I think we covered that in a previous stream, Anton LaVey's death. But notice when the Church of Satan was established in 66, in San Francisco. Remember, that was the year of the first Super Bowl season. Just like he had 666 total yards of offense in this latest Super Bowl in San Francisco, synced up with the Beastquake and Marshawn Lynch, who was the running back in that moment. Not to mention the Beastquake was on a date that can be written 8-1, like Mark of the Beast equals 81, as does Kobe Bean Bryant, who put up that 81-point game in his 666th career game and promoted the 666 workout, only to end up dying perfectly synced with the Pope. And again, later in this stream, I'm gonna tell you something about two men in unmarked graves and how they were paid tribute to in a major way in the Super Bowl, and that would be Kobe Bryant and Charlie Kirk. Two men in unmarked graves. Again, these are stories in the news. You were told the story, but how true are they? Well, we'll get to that eventually. It's a little bit off topic right now, but yeah, Ted Gunderson, he did write that the Satanists do everything in numerical ritual.
Yeah, I need to pick up a copy of his book. I know there was, I was looking on Amazon. I think it was called The 200-Year Plan, but then it was co-written. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'm going to have to pick that up. And then still reading through Manly P. Hall's, and then John Hammer. I don't know if you have any thoughts on him.
I'm actually not familiar.
He has a book. I'm looking at it here. It's called The Falsification of History. So I picked that up and kind of perusing through that. And of course, I have your book. I'm looking at it right now. And yeah, it's just try. I feel like it's all a lot of this information is so fragmented, and it's in some respects, certain things are reflected in works abroad. The satanic ritual element of it, I hear a lot. But yeah, I just feel like you're just it's like you have, as a person, you have to just kind of piece it together just to kind of put together these disparate parts. And I also mentioned there's a great channel. I don't know if you've encountered it. It's called the Imagination Podcast. And she dives into ritual mind control, MK Ultra stuff. She does a great job at it. I suspect that she's being censored, just like all of us are. And I just thought I'd mention that she'll upload content kind of reminiscent of Gunderson's work if people want to check it out. But yeah, no, I really enjoy this, and it was cool hearing more of your take, and I suspect the audience, as well, and things even outside of world events and what's going on here in our own lives. And so, yeah, it's interesting times. I think these next handful of years. Oh, also, I just want to mention this here. I know you're probably like, I want to wrap up. For what I've heard, Zach, these next handful of years are going to be critical. I'm hearing from some sources in that, AI is kind of like this mechanized slavery. And in that, if there's still social mobility right now, but that could be greatly handicapped in the coming years. And so what I'm hearing from some people is that, hey, get to wherever you want to be, whatever that number is, and get and have those assets, because it could be universal basic income land, or UBI land, as we're seeing roll out presumably here in the UK.
Go back to the 2020 election. Do you remember how there was the Chinese candidate? I believe his name was Andrew Yang.
Mm-hmm.
And he
Yeah,
was
I
running
do.
on this idea of UBI. And, we never heard anything like that. And we hadn't really ever seen a Chinese candidate in American politics either. And he was saying, with what's going on in technology, it's going to be needed in the future. And then what happens, shortly after we're getting introduced this idea through this Chinese candidate, we got Trump talking about the China virus. And then all of a sudden they're sending out checks, almost like what I believe his name was Andrew Yang, if I'm not mistaken. What Andrew Yang, this is what I mean, you guys. We are living out planned rituals, and they do introduce ideas to them so we can become a little bit familiar. And then eventually, it becomes the norm. And it's not the kind of, just like if you were one of the people that was totally out and you were just starving there, and finally the government sent you that little tiny check that probably amounted to almost nothing compared to what your normal paycheck would be. You had to learn you're probably getting by on ramen noodles, and maybe just ramen noodles, and not even able to pay the landlord like a lot of people weren't able to do in that time. They have plans for us, and they've told us, again, Agenda 2030, they want to save the world from greenhouse emissions. And I don't know, maybe we really do need to save the earth. I mean, we have a giant floating trash bin in the Pacific. But the thing is, it's this cabal that wants to be in control. They're the ones that are also responsible for the trash bin in the Pacific. And now they want to come and say, oh, because we did that, now we got to do this to you and have even greater control over you. Again, these people can't be in control. That's the thing we need to wake up to. We do not want these people controlling us. It's not good for us. And I mean, the evidence is everywhere. People's mental condition, the way our children look, the fact that it's almost impossible for young people to create a future for themselves, or even have a family, because of all the things we've discussed in this stream and more. Yeah, but Agenda 2030, I mean, that's the year. And you see how we're ticking down. And like we talked about last time, Mark Zuckerberg's Meta is supposed to be ready to go in 2030 so that we can all live in virtual reality. I mean, I can see a future where literally you live in a cell, almost like you're a prisoner, and it's a government cell, and you can get your basic needs there. But I mean, what kind of life is that? I mean, it's a horrible life. So, but then again, because I think they're kind of training us for that world, especially the younger generation, where they're like, well, I didn't even go outside anyway. I mean, I was used to living my whole life in front of a screen, so it's really not that much different. And you know what? I mean, 10 years ago, my mom got me the virtual reality for Christmas, and it's awesome. So I'm kind of adjusted to living in this world. I think that's also what we're seeing going on.
Well, it's pretty much like this Fabian, very surreptitious, very gradual rollout, which I hear from others, in that there's some other hidden hand that is not bound by human lifespan to effectuate this. I mean, it's interesting to hear people's take. Anything else that you'd like to share, Zach? And then also, how can people learn more about you and get in touch with you?
Yeah, since the Super Bowl just passed, I want to bring up the two men who are big stories in recent years that are in unmarked graves, and that's Kobe Bryant and Charlie Kirk. And where could they possibly fit in with Super Bowl 60? So we'll start with Kobe, since he supposedly died first. In his last game, you might recall that he scored 60 points. And his statue was put up on February 8th, 2024, on the 8th in the year 24, like he wore 8 and 24. That was the first statue put up for Kobe. And I thought it was strange that they waited so long, because they have statues for all the dead Lakers out in front of the stadium. When Elgin Baylor died, right before Baylor won the championship, they had that statue up in no time. So why did they wait so long for Kobe? So that statue of Kobe is 19 feet tall, which is the 8th prime number, like he began his career with 8. But there's only one major city in America that equals 19, and it's Seattle. The first confirmed case of the world of Cooties 19 outside of China was in Seattle, and Bill Gates' yard where the big needle is. But remember, there's now 3 straight Super Bowls the Seahawks have gone to when there's a new pope. And this year, Seattle improved to 19-19 in the postseason, to advance to the Super Bowl exactly 19 weeks after the Pope's birthday. So this year, Seattle blowing out the Patriots, up 19-0 before the first touchdown was scored. And the only touchdown scored by the Patriots was by Mac Hollins, who got his 19th career touchdown. That's the beauty of this knowledge. We loved A.J. Barner and we loved Mac Hollins to score in the game, and they ended up having the only 2 touchdowns. But Kobe Bryant. If you don't know, there's a Seahawk named Kobe Bryant. Seahawks win the Super Bowl on the anniversary of the Kobe Bryant statue, the 19-foot-tall statue. Don't forget, Kobe died the Sunday before Super Bowl 54 at 41. Kobe Bryant equals 41, like Super Bowl equals 41. The Seahawks blew out the 49ers in the divisional round this year, 41-6, and ended up winning the Super Bowl in the stadium. Kobe Bean Bryant, his full name equals 54 when you run it forwards, 81 when you run it in reverse, just like Mark of the Beast, like he had the 81-point game in his 666th career game. This year, the Seahawks won the Super Bowl by 16 points. If you go back to NFL Week 16, the first game of that week, Trump declared the Patriot games. And the NFL game that night was the Seahawks versus the Rams, Kobe Bryant's team. And the Seahawks were down 16 points in the first game of Week 16 to start the fourth quarter. And they came back and they won it. And they won it on a 2-point conversion to number 81. Number 81 caught the winning 2-point conversion. Kobe Bean Bryant, 81. It was the anniversary of Kobe's jerseys being retired, December 18th. They retired that at a Lakers-Warriors game, like Kobe's dad was drafted by Golden State. And for the record, Golden State equals 41, just like Kobe Bryant. Kobe retired 41 years after his father was drafted. His father went to LaSalle, the Catholic school. We'll see what they do tonight on the Vatican's birthday. They're a big upset if they surprise. But anyhow, so there's even more with the Kobe thing, but not to overdo it. Again, just Kobe B. Bryant, 54, dead the Sunday before Super Bowl 54. Joe Montana equals 54. That was the first Joe Montana Bowl, where Joe Montana wore 16 for the Niners and 19 for the Chiefs. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl, Chiefs over Niners in the 2019 season. And then they met again in Super Bowl 58, the 54th of the modern era. And the Chiefs became the first team to go back-to-back in 19 years. You might recall the score of that game was 16-19 before the Chiefs tied it up at 19-all to send it to OT, right before becoming the first team in 19 years to go back-to-back. And then McCole Hardman caught the game winner for his 19th career touchdown. So again, Kobe, the Super Bowl won by 16 points. Week 16, again, was that ritual with the Seahawks and the Rams. And by the way, the Seahawks won 38-37, 75 points. Kobe alone, when you just run the alphabetic order in reverse, is 75. The NFC Championship game between the same teams was 38 days later on the nose. Anyway, okay, so that's the Kobe piece. Now, Charlie Kirk. So this NFL season, Charlie Kirk died at the beginning of, and in week 3, they had a memorial in the Cardinal Stadium, which is where the Patriots and Seahawks faced each other last time, where Marshawn Lynch, Mr. Beastquake, didn't get the ball at the goal line, and instead the interception was thrown. So that Super Bowl was in the same stadium they had the memorial for Charlie Kirk. Now, if you go back, Tom Brady revealed this just days before the game, and I guess if you're a real football buff, you might have caught it yourself. Tom Brady, days before the game, said, there's only one stadium that I wish I played in more because I only played there one time, and every other place I played a bunch of times. And the one place he only played one time was the Seattle Seahawks Stadium. And if you go back and look, the day that he played there was October 14th, 2012. Well, that just happened to be Charlie Kirk's 19th birthday. Again, Seattle's 19. Again, this was Super Bowl 60. Charlie Kirk equals 60, like Donald Trump. Again, their assassinations 60 weeks apart after the 60th election of Trump. But okay, so Charlie Kirk turned 19 that day. And at one point in the game, the score was 19-7. Now, what's interesting is from the day the Patriots changed their logo to the day that Charlie Kirk was born. The Patriots used to have a Patriot on their helmet snapping a football like an offensive center, and they changed it to that logo they now have on the helmet, the Flying Elvis. They did that change March 31st, 93. 197 days before Charlie Kirk was born, October 14th, 93. The score was 19-7 at one point in that game. The reason 197 matters is it's the 45th prime. New England equals 45. Ritual equals 45. Trump used to be 45. Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA is credited with helping Trump get reelected in this election, which is all total BS because it was all rigged. Again, if you're following us, we told you 4 years before why he was coming back as a split-term president. It's all one big joke. But, okay. Charlie Kirk, the Patriot. When Trump announced these Patriot games, it was in tribute to Charlie Kirk. He did that the same day in Week 16 that the Seahawks came back on the Rams. And amazingly, Charlie Kirk founded Turning Point USA that same year that Brady played in Seattle on June 5th. The Hollywood movie, Patriot Games, with Harrison Ford, came out on June 5th. Again, the majority of the world writes that date 5-6. Super Bowl 60 was the 56th of the modern era. You might have saw the day after the Super Bowl, number 56, for the 49ers, who got traded from the Patriots this year, got shot in the ankle right after the game. Just all this little ritualism around these numbers. But again, just how big 19 was with Charlie Kirk and Brady's history between the Seahawks and Patriots. And by the way, the Seahawks won that game over the Patriots where Charlie Kirk played there, just like they won in the Super Bowl. But yeah, it came back to 19, what we call the Seattle number. And CNN, the day after the game was played, said Bad Bunny introduced a new form of American patriotism, which is kind of a head-scratching headline, but you kind of think about that. You know, Trump and Charlie Kirk, they're conservatives. San Francisco and Seattle. San Francisco hosted the Super Bowl. Seattle, these are probably the two most liberal cities in America. And most people would consider, you know, what's going on in those cities at odds with what traditional patriotism is. I mean, right now, the Seattle mayor is kind of out and open. I don't even think she'd run away from the word communist. But there's some kind of contrast here, and it's something to think about just with, you know, the direction the country's going and the way how they really can get people to think a whole lot different and what a new form of patriotism could be, which is something that's completely not American. Something else, did you see the halftime performance by Bad Bunny?
I did not watch it, no.
So, and part of it, he's climbing up power lines and the transformers are exploding. And they said he did this to honor the Hurricane Maria and how long the power was out for in Puerto Rico a number of years back. Remember, I think that was 2017 that happened, if I'm not mistaken. But a lot of people died. The official death count was 64. He wore a 64 on his shirt in tribute to the official death count, almost like to say, yeah, right, it wasn't just 64. They also said his uncle died shortly before the game at age 64. Just for the record, you guys, the other year, Snoop Dogg performed at the halftime show. Snoop Dogg equals 112, like Super Bowl. His mom just happened to die exactly 112 days before the Super Bowl. That was won by L.A. in the 213 area code on February 13th. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. But this ritualism and about what this number thing reveals to you about these ritual sacrifices. Remember, there's a song out there, Gematria Killing Game. There's also Murder by Numbers by the Police. But, oh yeah, the power outage thing. Now, you would have been younger. Do you remember the Blackout Bowl with the Harbaughs?
No.
Super Bowl 47, how the power went out for 34 minutes on the 34th day of the year and the Ravens won the game with 34 points. Super Bowl 47 between the 49ers and Ravens. Okay, so the 49ers and the Ravens had a blackout at the Super Bowl because now we have this power outage symbolism at the 49ers hosting the Super Bowl with Bad Bunny. If you go back and look, prior to that Super Bowl between the Ravens and the 49ers, there was a power outage on a Monday night football game in San Francisco back when they played at Candlestick. Remember, that's the old name of the 49ers stadium, Candlestick? So they had a power outage on Monday, actually two in one game, two power outages at Candlestick on Monday Night Football. If you measure from the power outages on that Monday night game to the Super Bowl where the power outage happened between the 49ers and Ravens. And keep in mind the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Ravens play in the same division, the AFC North, and a lot of parallels there. Tomlin and Harbaugh hired in the same year and both coached their teams for 19 years before they got kicked out of here. From the power outage with Pittsburgh and San Francisco to the Super Bowl was 412 days. That's the Pittsburgh area code, 412. And of course, Pittsburgh's the Steel City, and steel is the infrastructure for the power grid for the most part. This matters because the Super Bowl 47, we're now in the time of Trump number 47, that was right around the time Janet Napolitano stepped down from the Department of Homeland Security. And do you know what she talked about when she left DHS?
No.
Okay, well, you should go back and watch Janet Napolitano exit. Keep in mind, she used to be the governor of Arizona, too, in light of this year's Super Bowl being a rematch of what was in Arizona. What she talked about was the next 9/11 is not if, but when, and it is the national power grid going down in some kind of terrorist attack. Now, keep in mind, the Patriots came into this game versus the Seahawks 9-11 all time, 9-11. And also, Drake May this past season became 9-11 as a starter on the anniversary of the Patriot Act. And from Super Bowl 47 to Super Bowl 60 is obviously 13 years later. Here we are in the land of 13 stripes. The Patriots lost with 13 points. Again, Janet Napolitano said not if, but when, and she said it will happen. She said the national grid will go down in some kind of terrorist attack, cyber attack, EMP. You might recall Netflix at the start of last year released a series with De Niro where the power grid goes out nationally. Did you see that?
I did not.
You find out at the end of it that it was the U.S.'s own government that took down the grid and caused all this chaos. But yeah, this has been foretold. And if you go back to 2013, when the season of the blackout Super Bowl and Janet Napolitano's warning, the National Geographic Channel and Channel 4 in the UK released these things on the same day. They were supposed to be realistic films. And what they were about is what would happen if the grid went out in Channel 4 was for the UK and the National Geographic was for the US. But it focused on what would happen if the grid went down and stayed down. And in no time, just total chaos breaks out. Again, just the fact that we live under these predatory people who do want to get rid of us, and the way they bring about change is through catastrophic things that they seemingly contrive, whether it's towers being demolished or cooties, et cetera, et cetera. It is very interesting that this warning has been put out there. So I always tell people, don't live in fear, okay? I mean, when people wake up, they tend to get really afraid because they're like, oh my God, I didn't know all this was going on. Guess what? This doesn't go on your whole lifetime, so there's no reason to be more afraid today than yesterday just because you're aware. But being aware can be very beneficial. It allows you to maybe plan ahead. I always tell people, don't get caught with your pants down if they do take out the grid for a period of time. Having jugs of water on hand, not expensive. Having non-perishable food, cans of black beans, for example, not expensive, and black beans are very nutritional and filling. You might not like black beans, but they're good for you. You might have a little extra gas if you're down on the whole can. But again, these things can be life-saving. Batteries, flashlight, first aid. You don't have to go out and spend $1 million. I mean, there's still that like will do these videos and then like, and now buy this right now, $1,000 basement pack. It's like, please, if the grid goes down, you're gonna be carrying around your tubs of dried potatoes, and where are you gonna find please, just have the bare necessities. Because again, I mean, go back and listen. Janet Napolitano said it's gonna happen. It's going to happen, and it remains to be seen when it will happen. I mean, it's been a slow rollout, but seeing the Bad Bunny do the thing with the paying tribute to the power going out. Oh, by the way, you guys, there was a power outage in San Francisco exactly 50 days before the Super Bowl. When you think 50, you probably think of America. America equals 50 in Gematria. So does San Francisco. So does Washington, since Washington State just won. And by the way, it was the Seahawks' 50th season, and they beat a 50-year-old Mike Vrabel. For the record, satanic equals 50. Like the Church of Satan was founded in San Francisco, and this nation, at the end of the day, does seem to be pretty satanic, whether people realize it or not. But yeah, again, that was a real warning at the end of the Super Bowl. And the whole 19 thing that I brought up, just the word chaos equals 19. And remember, these people like to work in 19-year cycles. Cootie's 19 came 19 years after 9/11, the 19 hijackers, which came 19 years after Reagan declaring the war on drugs, which came 19 years after the assassination of JFK, which came 19 years after the U.S. deployed the most troops to World War II in 44. If we had another 19 years after Cootie's 2020, that is 2039. I'd like to think that we have at least that long until the next major thing, but you never know. So I always tell people, don't live in fear, but be aware of the times we live in and the people we live under, and what they do foreshadow. Because again, if they pull out the power and you don't have anything, that could be a real chaotic day. Remember in Cootie's when they told you there was a toilet paper shortage, which didn't make any sense. It was actually hard to find toilet paper in no time flat. People panicked and went out and bought all the toilet paper. You might recall in the time of Cootie's, there were certain things you go to the store. And I remember going to the store one day and there was zero spaghetti there. And I thought, and you understand why people bought up the spaghetti. It's cheap, it's inexpensive, and it's filling. But again, you don't want to be that person on the day that something like this happens. You go to the store and there's just nothing left there anymore. And you're like, great, I got no food. I got no water. I didn't get a first aid kit. I don't have batteries. I mean, just don't let that happen to you. But also at the same time, don't ever let this, nobody should ever live in fear. It is unfortunate the time we live in and the people we live under, but just as they say, an ounce of preparation is worth a pound of cure. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. This is the mentality I live with. And again, I just, yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is something to be mindful of. And if you haven't heard what Napolitano said, go back and listen to her exit speech as the head of the Department of Homeland Security, something that was created out of 9/11.
Well, I will. I'll have to check that out, and I do think it is good to always end it on a positive note in light of events going on. I mean, in many respects, this is the best time to have been alive, considering access to resources and I mean information, and so I mean all these tools that are at our disposal. So we definitely have, you know, I think a high degree of agency, so to speak. Zach, how can people learn more about you and get in touch with you?
Yeah, again, Zachary K. Hubbard. If you search that, you'll find pretty much everything connected to me. My social media spots that still exist. A lot of them have been deleted. My books, again, my last book, Number Games, it's on that website named after the big rainforest and a lot of other places. But yeah, Zachary K. Hubbard, you can pretty much find everything. If you'd like to support the work, I have a Patreon page. We decode sports there every day. Maybe we'll get back into the market here in the near future. I have a number of people requesting that. And hey, I'm glad you started that market site. Great idea. It's good to diversify.
Well, you know, I took your advice because, and candidly, for those that don't create content, when you're, you know, there's a lot of time and energy that goes into doing these sit downs, and there's an opportunity cost too, right? And so, you know, to see something that is clearly getting censored is you know, it makes you question where you're allocating your time. And so Zach suggested, hey, you need to start another channel. You're being censored. And so I thought, you know what, you're right. So I'm just kind of keeping it segregated in that one's financial related and one's kind of these conversations. But I really enjoyed our conversation, and lot to chew on. I mean, there is a lot to chew on, and we'll do this again here soon. And I'd like to do a deep dive on other topics as well.
There's always more to talk about with these people ruling over us. But thanks again, Christian. Thank you to your audience for listening, and appreciate it.
All right. Well, you take care, and we'll see you here before long. Thanks for tuning in. And if you enjoyed the show, I encourage you to like, share, and follow if you found value in it. I also have a new show called Markets with Christian White, which is exclusively focused on the financial markets. If that is something of interest to you, I encourage you to check that out. And I always look forward to hearing your feedback and thoughts. And until next time, take care and be well.